3:27, parents are sitting there waiting. Where's it at? It's 2 minutes after when you said you were gonna pick me up. It's 3 minutes after you dropped off. Well, I just explained to you why that might have changed. We could have had delays with our high school and middle school runs. We could have had a kid throw up. We could have had a car accident. We could have had a deluge come down where everyone had to slow down to 20 miles an hour. So that was another piece to all of this, is people were given times and we weren't able to honor those times, and people held those times as the gold standard. It says 8:25, why aren't you here? Well, those were estimates. So this is an education process. Again, I'm going to say full disclosure, things were a mess. They've gotten better. We're working hard to make them better. And we've got a lot of people doing that. So I need, after you guys ask questions, I do need some guidance. Do I give Brandy the direction to move forward with a change that we think are going to get those elementary buses home, but it's going to require group stops, more group stops for our middle school and high school? We'll do a good job. We'll do a better job communicating at this time. We'll do about a 2-week lead time before we implement it. So I'm going to stop talking unless you have questions for me, and I'm going to open up the floor.
I have just a couple of questions. Can it be implemented one bus at a time instead of all 4 at the same time to kind of mitigate the disruption? And I recall the high school kids having group stops for almost ever. Has that changed?
There's more group stops, yes. And it's probably more so middle school that it's impacting in high school. Because a lot of your high school kids end up driving. It's the middle school kids that don't have any other way to get to school.
And I live on Cherokee, but come down Shawnee, and that used to be the drop-off point, Shawnee and Cherokee, and all the kids would walk down that street. I mean, you have Adina and Delaware down there. I mean, it's good distance for them to walk, but I mean, it's a safe area.
I will tell you that we've had group stops in the past, but this district had more door-to-door pickup than any place I've ever been. And sometimes door-to-door would be 2 or 3 kids from like a driveway here, a driveway here, a driveway here to come to this. That's not really considered a group stop because you're only walking from here to the parking lot. But we've had more, in the past, we had more door-to-door drop-off.
And it's only the drop-off that you're talking about changing.
Only drop-off for middle school and high school. And this is so that we can get our buses to the elementary quicker, so that then the kids are leaving the elementary quicker.
And then refresh my memory, age of middle school now is starting what?
6th, 7th, and 8th. So 6th graders are what? 11, 12.
I think if they're not walking great distances, it wouldn't be a problem. You know, my street, more rural street, we've only had 2 stops. It's a dead-end street. There's only been 2 group stops on my street as long as I can remember. And I appreciate that Brandy came in and right away wanted to go to a new program. I think, talking about responsibility and not putting blame on anybody, but if we have a program that was not supported for the last 5 years, that program should have been replaced 5 years ago and get into something new. I'm in favor of the group stops again, as long as people aren't walking great distances, especially with the winter coming up. But whenever there's changes, whenever there's anything implemented, there's not only responsibility of the district to communicate that out, which I think was done a lot. There's also responsibility for the parents, the families, to go online and check. When the instructions came out to check your child's link, I did. There was a problem. I emailed the transportation director. She fixed it. She gave me the information and said, "Here's your times." So the parents, the families that don't check their students' information, especially if you're new, your child is just getting into school, I can understand if you're not familiar with it. But those of us that have had students in the schools for so long, you should already know. And if you don't know, start asking. I'm glad all that got worked out, and that everybody's moving forward and everybody came together to get these kids home safely. And I appreciate the fact too that the bus drivers didn't just say, "Okay, I'll let you off here. Find your own way home." I know our drivers are a heck of a lot more responsible than that, and I'm glad that they stuck to their guns. Unfortunately, kids today, some kids think that if I can't get my way, I'm calling 911. Bad bad idea. But I'm just glad that our drivers did what they did.
Mike, thanks for explaining that. I know it took a long time. Thanks to the drivers for being here too. I'm sure you've been through a lot, so I'm sorry you've had to go through what you've had to go through. But I'm definitely all for group stops, Mike. I think it's a way to speed things up, and I think it'll work perfect. I don't know why we would even question it. I think it's a great idea myself, but I mean, we all did as kids, and we're still here. So the communication, you said you're gonna send home a letter, that's fine. I would say if there's other ways to communicate, that's great too. I don't care if it means calling the parents at home, leaving a message, calling their cell phones and texting them, having people do it. Heck, I volunteer to help call, I don't care. But I would do multiple ways of communication to make sure that we don't miss anything, okay? And I know it's been rough this past couple weeks, and like you said, a lot of other high schools have had issues. I've talked to people that I've worked with, and they've had issues as well in other schools, Kenston, Aurora. So I don't know if they were as extensive as ours, but we have new systems, so we have some reasons. But the main thing is that we fix it. Let's not complain about what happened and try to point blame on people. Find out the problem and fix it. That's what we have to do. So as long as we do that, Mike, I'm fine with everything. So that's it. Oh, sorry. And like Kevin said, the parents have to help out too. You know, call the school. I called the school and told them that Garrett would not be riding the bus. It doesn't take long to do that. Send somebody an email. We're a team here. Everybody has to work together. The parents don't help out, and it's not going to work. So some of the blame is not just on them. It's the parents as well. I'm a parent, so it's my blame too. I mean, so anyway, that's enough of that.
I mean, guys, you addressed a lot of the complaints I heard and then put them out as just false rumors. Some of the things I had heard you didn't quite address though was, I mean, even into the second week of school, those kids, parents who went on and checked their dealing, the addresses were right, but the kids were still getting put off at the wrong stop.
I don't think that's correct.
I mean, after what you said, I mean, I'm inclined to believe you. I mean, but you still got parents, I mean, they're calling me, they're sending me messages, they're sending me emails, hey, why is my kid getting put off? Not 6 houses away, but at the other end of the development. And I mean, it's like a first grader and a preschooler.
Well, if it's the same first grader and preschooler that I know about, that was the second day of school, and that did happen. And those are two of the ones that I referred to earlier, and that was fixed. Yes.
Excellent. Communication though, I got a phone call about bus 6 being late one day because they sent out a robocall to the entire SES. But like my kid's on bus 10 or bus 34, like, is there a way we can narrow that down? Like, I'm not a nervous person, but like I can see where that would rattle, get people worried. Why are they telling us about this?
I understand what you mean.
I got a robocall about bus 6 being late, but why?
Well, there's no way in the system
to
to
break it down,
break it down by bus. So we can't do that. And so to answer that person's question, the bus was late. It hadn't arrived yet. It was 10 till 4. So if I don't make a robocall and tell them the bus is late, then they're gonna be calling screaming because I didn't tell them their kids were late. So I did a robocall to the and I only went to elementary kids. We have it isolated by building.
Okay. So I mean, like my kid rides bus in the morning and goes to preschool in the afternoon. We haven't had any problems. I mean, and a lot of people on my side of town haven't had any issues. I checked my e-link like 4 days before school started. One of the addresses was wrong. I called the office. Someone answered, which is amazing. They're busy, but they changed it right away. Called me back a few hours later, and everything was better. But I had a lot of people saying they're not answering, they're not returning phone calls, they're not returning emails. I know it was a busy time. I just want to let you know that.
I think it's getting better.
Yeah,
it's getting better.
It's a lot.
We were overwhelmed, very frankly.
Yeah, after a while, you can only take so much.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
and so
we
we
can
actually,
understand.
in order to help transportation, we actually closed the board office 2 Fridays ago. And every single employee, including Andreas, Ariane, Joe, myself, and all of our secretaries, we left one over there to fill calls, and we went over and we returned over 70 phone calls and emails personally. And while we were doing that, Randy was real time along with Amy, both in the system, fixing routes. So we recognize, that was part of that initial issue that I talked about, where there was so much incorrect data. And it all happened at once because, for whatever reason, we didn't get that information until the first 2 days of school. So we were overwhelmed with phone calls and emails, and they weren't getting returned because it was just physically impossible. So that's why we actually closed the board office and we all went over there and sat down and we took over the driver's break room and started making phone. And there were actually several drivers that were in there too, making phone calls. So it wasn't just the board office staff. I think there were probably 8 drivers in there also doing it. It was crazy, but it was also kind of cool because they showed how much everyone cared, and we were just trying to get it fixed.
I can't even imagine taking that many calls at one time. Because I know dealing with customers, when there's a problem, they don't want to get off the phone, they want it fixed immediately, and I would say I would commend everybody that helped out through the whole problem.
So Andy, to your point, yes, we struggled returning phone calls and emails.
You guys did fine. I
We
mean,
did, but I think I think that we're getting better at that. And if people aren't able to get over to the bus garage because the phone's busy, they now know to call Sue, my secretary, and Sue is relaying that information. We've created a Google Doc where we're logging our calls.
I mean, I thought you guys did fine, and I knew they were busy, but I mean, people call me and complain, they grab me in the store, hey, what's going on? Like, I feel like I'm ready to that. The only thing I think that you tell me if we have or haven't, or if we want to get back, the bus that goes to Biomed, or Neomed, whatever, and then to Maplewood, how many kids are supposed to be on that? How many kids can be on it? I mean, I know it's nowhere near capacity, like legal capacity, but like, how many kids are we trying to squeeze in there? I've had several people approach me and say, my kid's sitting on the bus with, there's 3 to a seat and it's high schoolers. And like, what are we doing there?
I'll have to get back to you on that. The buses have capacity, and your top capacity is 70 passengers.
Yeah, there's
But
like
that-
squeeze having 70 high schoolers in there.
But that changes based on the size of the body. So you're not gonna put 70 high school kids on there, but I'm not talking about you, because I really don't know.
Additionally, I would like to say a group stops are good.
I highly doubt that we would put more kids on a bus than we're supposed to put on the
No,
bus.
there's no way you're gonna squeeze 70 high schoolers in there.
Right, but what I'm
But
saying is.
if you've got 3 high schoolers to a seat, who gets half a seat?
Well, maybe
Who's
there's,
that-
maybe
who's
there's,
that lucky kid out?
but maybe that kid should be sitting in the seat with somebody else, but they don't want to. That's why they're sitting in the seat with 3 people. Come on. I mean, there's no way we would put more.
So I've got
kids on a
I've
bus.
got kids and parents that both said to me that there's kids, and that I'll bring it to you to verify it. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but that there's more than enough people on the bus where some seats have to have 3 kids. So and my second grader rides the bus with 3 kids in the seat, whatever, they're second graders, they fit. High schoolers don't fit 3 to a seat. They said there's multiple people on the bus that have to sit 3 to a seat, they're hanging out in the aisle.
So I'll get all 5 of you, I'll send you guys, I don't know the buses, but we do transfer to the middle school by event, and then you go to Maplewood. I will get the capacity, and I'll talk to Brandon and get some of those numbers.
I don't want to come off like I'm getting hard at it when it was crazy right off the bat. I mean, things happen, but I think we did a great job cleaning it up. I just,
There's still work to do.
There is still.
And we're working hard. Just one other quick thing that I'm gonna I will be bringing a recommendation to you folks next month. I've not finalized that. Our bus accident 2 years ago, we lost, we were finally had 5 spare buses, and our bus accident took basically 3 buses out of our fleet. And we've still not recovered from that. So part of this efficiency study, and I don't have the final numbers yet, but OSBA actually did a search for buses for us. And they're making the recommendation that we lease to purchase, so that you can do more. So you lease it, but it cheers at the end of the lease. Lease purchase 4 buses. He found 2 modern or mildly used with very few miles on it, and 2 new that are stock buses that we could infuse 4 buses immediately into our fleet within the next month. We're hurting for buses. We have 2 spare buses, and I think one of them's broken down right now. I'm not even sure, but and the second piece that Randy's working on is that, very frankly, we're struggling to get people to be sub drivers for us. And so that's another one of those anomalies that when you have, life happens and people get sick and family members get sick, and if you have 3 or 4 bus drivers that are out and you only have 2 drivers to cover, then that throws everything off. But I'm going to be bringing a recommendation to you next month to do, which we can do out of our PI dollars. We can do a lease purchase of 4 buses that we'll own at the end of the lease. We can determine when we want to make that first lease payment, so we can even push that into our next fiscal year if we want. That's a recommendation he's making also, so that we can still, with this fiscal year, purchase our 2 buses like we're planning on. So now you're talking possibly up to 6 buses infusing into our fleet in the next 4 or 5 months. I'm going to make that recommendation that we move on that right away, because we are still hurting with functional buses. And another concept that I thought was really cool, and again, you guys are going to get a report on all this, because the audit's not quite done. Another concept that I'm going to ask you guys to start thinking about is that we have 12 newer buses that we purchased in the last 5 years, and the rest of them are more than 12 years old. What we should be doing as a district, and this is a part of this efficiency study, is that you should get into a habit of trading in buses when they have an equity. So when you buy a bus, once it hits year 10, it costs about $5,000 a year to maintain it at year 10. And that's just doing, fixing things, engine components, rust, stringers, whatever. So a concept that this OSBA is really pushing out for districts to be more efficient is that you really should be taking a bus when they hit year 8. They still have equity in them, trading them in while they have equity and get more money for them and going into the bus. So you're leveraging equity, not waiting until the bus is 10, 11, 12, 15 years old. Because you guys know that when we bought these new buses and traded them old, you recall how much we've gotten for the buses that we've taken off the road? $500 to $1,000. So if you leverage your equity at 8 years, you're going to get a heck of a lot more than $500 to $1,000. And then you're also saving money, because at year 10, it's about an average of $5,000 per bus per year to keep it on the road. So those are savings. So again, this is going to be a recommendation and report I'm going to give to all of you next month. And then, like I said, I'll do some legwork ahead of time. You guys are going to hear this for the first time at the next meeting, but I am going to start throwing some numbers at you. As soon as I have them, I'm going to meet with CJ, and he and I are going to see whether or not we can do this, which I think we can. And we're going to need to infuse some more buses into our fleet.
Just one question on that. So you said you wanted to lease it to buy.
Correct. It's called lease purchase.
Right. So what if we buy it initially instead of leasing initially? Is it cheaper in the long run, Mike? Significantly cheaper?
It is cheaper, but it's a significant cost.
Isn't it just
So
like
what,
purchasing a vehicle?
it is, it's like,
on it? You either pay for it or you purchase it through a bank and you pay an interest payment on it.
They're used buses. Right?
there's the 2 that he found, were very mildly used. I don't have that definition for you, but he said they basically were used very little. They were probably leased by a district for a short period of time and turned back in. And then there's a company that also has about, I think he said right now they have about 12 stock buses that are available.
Okay.
So I want to purchase 2 buses, because we said that we were going to do that this spring, or this fall, I'm sorry. But then the idea behind the lease purchase, and we'll talk about this, maybe it's not for us, would be get 4 more quick and kind of delay the payment for those, or pay a little bit more of a time, so we can get a total, more than 2 buses to help our fleet out. I promise I will get you guys, as soon as I have it, I'll get you guys the information via email, so that we can start having that, you guys can have that information prior to next work.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
And I'm okay with getting buses traded in earlier. I don't think we should be holding on to buses for 15, 20 years, because just what you said, they break down and the money that we're going to get out of them. But our buses transport our students every day, 9 months and thousands of miles. It's not like my car, where I might keep my vehicle for 20 years, but the buses can't do that anymore. And so I'm okay with that.
So I'll get you guys the information, and it's going to be part of that efficiency study that we're going to get. And I'll email that to you guys as soon as I have it. And I'll have all those recommendations. Okay, I apologize it took so long on that, but I wanted to take enough time that you guys can hear everything that's happened and where we're at.
I appreciate you doing it.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, so moving on, just very quickly, Andres, would you throw that one-page strategic plan up on the screen, please? So last month, I asked you guys to throw me some feedback, and I did get some feedback, and so we did, the other one was better.
Yeah, let me go back.
There you go. So we did modify the belief statements, and you can see those up there. Also, we, the vision, we wordsmithed, but we wordsmithed a few portions. I'm not going to go into directly what we did, but I believe now we have, as far as our mission, our vision, our belief statements, and our goals, they're good. I like it. I think it's, and I'm going to make the recommendation that we vote on that tonight. What I will tell you is this: I have this short version and the longer version of the strategic plan being read by a bunch of different people right now to kind of clean up the words. I'm asking you tonight to vote on those because the essence is not going to change. The goals are the same, the action steps are the same, the dates will be the same, but we are going to try and wordsmith and clean up some of the verbiage. So I'm asking that, I'm hoping that you're comfortable with voting on the plan and tonight, so that we can get moving forward with creating some publications and getting it out there. So it is part of my superintendent's recommendations, but I wanted to throw that out there one last time to see if there's any feedback from any
That's fine to me when I read it.
I think if you find one or two words that you change to have a better emphasis on a certain point, I don't think there's a problem with that.
Yeah, I will not change the intent now of making these goals and action steps. What you see is what we're going to do now. Okay? All right, thanks. Just go ahead and take that off there. Last meeting, we talked about what to name the old middle school, because we keep calling it the old middle school. And I wanted to talk about that tonight. Mr. Grimm threw 3 different ideas my way. I have those listed there on the agenda: the Streetsboro City School Center for Professional and Community Enrichment, the Enrichment Center, or the Enrichment Annex. Those are 3 ideas. I want to open it up to the floor. Has anyone put any thought into some ideas? You know, and again, the purpose of that building will be staff development. We're hoping to move some community programs into that. Also, that's a home now to our wrestling program, community and school wrestling program. And it's going to be a home to our baseball and softball teams for off-season fielding and hitting. So it's going to kind of be a community. It's going to be a school district. Our administrative team has a room in there now. We have a staff development room that we've already held our first meetings. Arian and her daughter were in there putting contact paper on doors, and the custodial crews painted a room for us. So it's now a staff development room. So we're starting to put some personality to it. So any other ideas aside from what Kevin said?
I like the shortest one.
But another idea is if you just keep calling it the old middle school, you just have to add the old to the current sign.
Right.
I think the
How about
current,
SCS Enrichment Annex?
Or how about just SCS Annex,
Annex, there you go.
there we go.
Streetsboro
I like
School
that one too.
Annex?
That's how we already have it named internally.
Oh.
Resource
I
calendar.
like that one.
Yes.
Streetsboro,
SCS Annex.
SCS Annex.
If they can't figure out what the SCS is.
So I'm gonna, so are you guys okay with that? SCS Annex? All right, so what we'll do then is I will call John Szyskowski at the city and get the process done, because we actually have to go before, I'll have to go before planning and zoning to ask them if we can change the name and put a sign up on the building. So I'll have Dave Clark take down the
What did you say?
current letters and we'll look to make a sign. But we can't, even though there's already a sign there, if we take that down, we have to have the new sign approved.
Can Maplewood make the sign or?
I'll ask, I'll find out, probably.
Just save the letters that you take and rearrange them. You need an X. You need an X.
It's funny, there's someone in the room, Andreas, that found some old letters and he brought them into my office. If we just move this letter here and this letter here, we can, so.
You should run me your letters in.
Word jumble.
I don't think,
An anagram contest.
well, we tried it last month. It didn't work out. But I don't think it says middle school anymore, but I could be wrong. I'll have to double check.
It does, so it's just.
Oh, it does? Well, it won't tomorrow then. We solved that problem.
I'll say Streetsboro, but no middle school.
It'll say streets.
All right, so I'll start the process then of petitioning the city to rename it the SCS Annex.
So officially, it's the Streetsboro City Schools Annex, but on the building, it just say those letters.
And what I think I'll do, rather than doing the 3D letters, we'll probably do a nice sign with the rocket label on it or something like that. So it can be taken down easily when if we have to use it as a school building again. All right, and then my final item, and again, I apologize for taking so long today, but my final item is actually one I'm excited about. So our baseball and softball field are nearing completion. The seeding and fertilizer is done. Maplewood is showing up here within the next couple of weeks to build the press boxes. It'll be a 2-story press box on top with concession stand on the bottom. And so I'm excited to present to you, and you guys are going to vote on this. We would like to dedicate these fields to our veterans. So we want to name the baseball field the American Legion Field, and we'd like to name the softball field Veterans Field in honor of our men and women that have served in our armed forces. So I wanted to throw that out to you during my discussion, because if there's any, if we want more discussion and I need to pull the vote off the agenda, we can do that. But they were excited when we met with them and asked if they were interested. We met with both groups, and they were ecstatic. They're going to purchase and place flagpoles for us on both fields, and we want to honor them during our Veterans Night football game, which is not next home game, but the following home game. We'll actually, if you approve it, we're going to formally present to our community the naming of these 2 fields, and have members from both organizations there to present that to them.
Great idea.
A better way to honor the veterans that we have.
Absolutely love the idea. It's great.
As a veteran, I appreciate that. It's really cool to do. So it's great.
All right.
Excellent idea.
All right, so that's then under my recommendations, and we'll move forward with that. All right, that concludes my short report.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo.
See if CJ can beat your time.
Moving on to treasury report.
Okay, attached, and if Andres will put it on the screen,
Here we go.
is a general fund review. Just kind of shows the health of the general fund over historical times. We can see the general fund currently from last fiscal year in July is down about 1.85 million. This is obviously due to increase in costs like benefits, things of that nature, but then also loss of revenue like TPP and things like that we've discussed. So my plan is to continue to give you updates on the health of this fund every month in a similar fashion. Maybe I'll be able to add a little to it, but just wanted some feedback on that from you and trying to navigate through what you'd like to see. Because since I've been here, there hasn't been any treasurer's report.
When was the last time we received taxes?
We get them in January and July, typically if we request the advance.
And is July's reflected in this?
I'd have to check the receipts, but I would assume so.
Good to get this on a monthly basis. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, I would conclude my report.
I will just add one thing. It does show the need for the levy that's coming up in November.
Correct.
That concludes, well,
You like 3 minutes.
yep, not even.
Just gotta make sure I'm one step ahead of Mike.
That was all good information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to board reports. Mrs. Ballard.
There's a PTA meeting last night, and there was a presentation from the levy chair at the meeting discussing the 7.5 mil levy. And the next PTA meeting is in November, general membership meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Ballard. Moving on, Mr. Gibson?
Yeah, the levy committee, if anyone wants to get involved or wants to spread the word, they're meeting every Thursday at 6 PM at the Starbucks over in Target. They're not getting a lot of people showing up. It's an awkward time for me, so I can't make it, but they're looking for people looking to get the word out. They're working on a fundraiser or two to get some money together to purchase signs and pamphlets and whatnot, and planning on setting up information booths at several of the home games to inform everyone of the choices that we have. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Mr. Grant?
A few things, kind of city band stuff combined here. First of all, the next two phases of the Meadowview Estates plan has been approved by the city. This will bring an additional 100 homes to the neighborhood. Once completed, the entire development will see around 500 plus homes total. Since that development started around 10 years ago, the city has seen an increase of 253 homes in the community, which of course translates to more students in our schools. And we see those numbers periodically going up.
We're about to 2,300.
And it'll keep going. They're still building. The weather station at the high school, which is part of our own WSTV radio, along with Bob Long's social media updates, and I know he's listening. Bob's updates about the rainfall over this past weekend were very useful during that extended rainfall that we had, and everybody expected a lot more rain. Portage County Emergency Management Agency and the incident management team were on standby, prepared to respond for flooding or other problems that may have cropped up. Luckily, we didn't get as much rain as we thought we would. But we were able to keep track of the rainfall in this part of the county by way of Bob's updates, and also the weather station. If you use the Weather Underground app, you can get the readings from that station. It's WSTV radio on a 24-hour basis. But it's useful to us, to me especially, to see daily conditions throughout the year, so that for planning daily activities, and it also is helpful in emergency responses that maybe some people don't realize, but it's just something else that is beneficial to emergency response. Over the past several years, the Streetsboro High School Band has provided one or more trumpeters to play taps at the fire department's annual 9/11 ceremony that we have every year. Both of my sons played trumpet. They've also participated. This year, Jackie Beaver and Emily Esperson played echo taps, where one person plays taps and the second person echoes part of it. And they do that at our home football games as well. As expected, these ladies did a wonderful job. As I explained to them, they may think that they have a small part in this ceremony. They stood there during the entire ceremony, and at the end, they played taps. But as I explained to them, it was a very important part. In reality, we don't strive for perfection in the ceremony overall. We plan it out. Is what we're trying to accomplish, and I think we do accomplish, is to establish a time of reflection and remembrance coordinated with the time that the Twin Towers started to fall. That took the lives of so many public servants and others in those buildings. The playing of taps caps off the ceremony and puts to rest our ceremony every year until we meet again the following September 11th. Of course, we encourage the public to stop by the memorial anytime, but I wanted to say thank you to the schools, Mr. Newman, Mr. Hogue, the band. They all coordinated everything to allow those students to come down and play taps for us. And the band played at the Solon Band Bash last Saturday. Their next band show is September 29th at Mayfield High School. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, I have a few things here. So the volleyball team, girls volleyball team is off to 5-3 start. Lauren Burks is having her best season yet with a total thus far of 74 kills, and they're only halfway through the season. The girls cross-country teams are off to a great start this season. They've competed in 5 races, and the girls are working hard towards personal records. The team competes at the Spartan Invitational on Saturday at Boardman High School. The boys cross-country team season highlights include placing 8th out of 17 teams at the Billy Goat Invite. I think that's in Mount Union, I think. We also placed 6th out of 12 teams at the Marlington Invitational. In addition, Riley Devers, our #1 runner, has broken into the 17-minute range for the first time in his career. That's a pretty good time, 17 minutes. Varsity football is currently 1-2 after a couple of losses to playoff contending teams, Kenson and Orange. Their first victory came on the road against Chagrin Falls last week. Chris Richardson, Dante Jones, Andrew Douglas, and Bear Anderson are off to really good starts of the season, and they look to be successful in the conference season that starts this week. JV team is off to a 3-0 start, led by strong freshman and sophomore classes. They began the season with thrilling come-from-behind home win versus Kenston, and then blowout victories against Orange and Chagrin Falls. The cross-country teams that I already talked about are having their annual senior night race on Wednesday, September 26th, at the Streetsboro City Park at 4 p.m. They invite everyone from the community to come and join on the 5K and help celebrate the seniors. The girls soccer team is 5-1-2, 2-0-1 in the PTC on the season, including a big win against Woodridge and a tie with Field, both of which should be a couple of the better teams in the PTC. Through 7 games, Emma Flick has 10 goals, Kaylee Klein has 7, and Ella Devers has 4 goals. Ella Devers and Krista Krasik lead the team with 5 assists each. Jessica Marison has 4 shutouts and goal. And the boys soccer team is having a really good start to the year at 4-2, so that's really good for them. As of today, last but not least, golf, can't forget them. The golf team has a 400% improvement in wins this year. We also have a girls team for the first time in history. And the boys are 4-2 as of today, and overall they're 4-8 in the PTC. So I don't think they won it all last year, so that's a big improvement to the boys golf team. Anyway, that's it. Sorry, a lot going on in sports.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Just want to say I appreciate the comments that Mr. Dalbaugh made about the pathways to graduation. I know that that was a big topic of discussion at last month's Maplewood meeting. And this week, this next week's meeting on Thursday, I believe we will be voting on a resolution to put forth to the state, letting them know our displeasure in dropping those pathways and hopefully getting them to reinstate them. And I guess we'll be talking more about that next meeting, and I'll pass the information along to you after our meeting next month, what we had discussion on at Maplewood. That's all I have. Moving on to approval of minutes. If I can get this cursor to get there. Minor difficulty with some rules.
I think it's the
It
trick.
is recommended the Board of Education approve the minutes from the 6/13/18 special board meeting and 8/9/18 board meeting and 8/16 board meeting tour as submitted.
I'll move.
I'll second. We have a first and a second. Any comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes.
Mrs. Baba.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
Moving on to the consent agenda items. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items B through O.
I'll move.
We have a first and a second. Any comments? Just take a look at the donations on the page. There was numerous donations made to the Educational Foundation, and looks like the middle school for PBIS t-shirts. A pretty sizable one, $1,500 from Jared Wolf. Just want to say thank you for that. Please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
Mrs. Baba.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Motion carries. Moving on to superintendent's recommendations.
Yes, I have 3. Item A, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the naming of the baseball field, American Legion Field, and the softball field, Veterans Field.
I'll move.
Second.
First and second. Any comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Baba.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Absolutely, yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item B, it's recommended the Board of Education approve the 5-year strategic plan from the years 2018 through 2023.
Second?
First and second, comments? Please call a roll.
Mrs. Battle.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And then item C, it is recommended the Board of Education ratify the OSBA Transportation Services Consulting Contract and OSBA Services Agreement as shown in the attachment.
I'll move. I'll second.
First and second.
Yes, so this is the efficiency study, and then we'll, after that's completed, we're gonna, I'm making a recommendation that we do a complete operations study, just to kind of, we're gonna just take a look at our entire operation, and then what that'll do is will give us recommendations about our entire operation and how to improve it.
Please call a roll.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Grimm,
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mrs. Battle,
Abstain.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
That concludes my recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Galva. Moving on to the treasurer's recommendations.
It is recommended the Board of Education approve the following return on advances as listed. These are just advances that took place in the end of the fiscal year and are now being returned to the general fund.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and second. Any other comments? Please call a roll.
Mr. Grimm,
Yes.
Mrs. Battle,
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Motion carried.
It is recommended the Board of Education approve permanent appropriations for fiscal year 2019 and estimated resources will be adjusted as needed for permanent appropriations.
I'll move.
I'll second. First and second, any comments?
These are our permanent appropriations for the year. You approved temporaries in July, so we're kind of sharing those up. We'll probably amend them a few times as the year goes on based on some things. So we just need to have this done in place.
Please call a roll.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mrs. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Motion carried.
That concludes my recommendation.
Okay, moving on, any new business?
Yes. Stop me if I'm not allowed to go here, Brian, if you will. I was at the recent city council meeting, and they discussed in open session, having a group of them with the mayor, would like to meet with a group of us and Mr. Nabal to discuss figuring out this lawsuit. As opposed to just continuing on piling legal fees on both sides. So I would like to discuss or get a consensus amongst us what we would think about that. If they said, hey, if they call us up and said, hey, we want to do this, are we willing to meet in the middle with them on this, or what are we willing to do?
I think that should be something.
That's why I don't know if it's something we can discuss here, but that's
If
why I brought it
if
up.
you're talking about a lawsuit in open session, I don't think that's appropriate. I think that should be handled through our legal team.
That's why I brought it. They brought it up in open session to discuss, and then they left inconclusively, and then went to executive session to discuss a lawsuit. So I'm sure it got finished there, but that's why I didn't know if it was okay to bring it up here. If
Yeah,
that's
but we
what
should
discuss.
discuss that here.
Okay.
So,
That's fine. That's why I just want to make sure. I meant to grab it before.
thanks.
And you need to know before we go into open session, go into executive session, we can only discuss what is listed in our reason for going into executive session. So if you haven't told
That was my
With
next
that,
line, was if
you
we can make
can't.
sure we get it added on there that we're discussing.
Actually, we can't because we don't have an attorney present, so you can't talk about pending litigation unless you have an attorney present.
and their attorney is a part of their city, so he's always there.
Yeah, he's always there.
Ours isn't.
Any old business? Hearing none. Moving on to executive session. It is recommended the Board of Education enter into executive session to consider the discipline of a public employee or official, to confer with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are the subject of pending or imminent court action, and to discuss details relative to security arrangements and emergency response protocols for a public body or a public office with possible action to follow.
I'll move. I'll second.
We have First and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Grimm,
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mrs. Baba,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Motion carried. We're in executive session, 7:36.
Make sure that that's not.